What is happening, everybody out there? My name is Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel. So let's talk about a series that doesn't really get a whole lot of shine from Nintendo fans, despite everybody talking about some of the big franchises that come out of the big end. Super Mario Bros. Was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System and kickstarted the legacy of the entire Mario franchise that even continues still to this day. But there was one series of games on the Game Boy that really didn't get a whole lot of shine but still had a big significant impact for Nintendo back in the day. So without further ado, let's just dive into this review. This is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. Super Mario Land is the first portable Mario game released as a launch title for the original Game Boy. There's a lot different about this game that really sets it apart from the rest of the Mario series. For starters, the story in Super Mario Land doesn't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom. Instead, everything happens in a world called Sarasa Land. This was done on purpose at the time because of the series making its debut on a brand new platform, so Nintendo presented it as a new kind of action game in case things went really wrong. Had Super Mario Land not become successful, the integrity of the Super Mario series on home consoles would have been totally fine. But as history tells us, everybody really liked it. So what's the main story of Super Mario Land? A monster named Tatanga invades Sarasa Land and kidnaps its ruler, Princess Daisy, taking over all four main kingdoms with its power and attempts to make Daisy become its queen. Mario somehow finds out about this back in the Mushroom Kingdom and makes his way over to Sarasa Land to save Princess Daisy and restore peace to the world. As a Mario spin-off title, the game has a lot of similarities to the original Super Mario Bros., but still has a whole lot more different about it to make it stand on its own completely new adventure. The best part, however, is that despite all the big differences, it still has all the best parts about the original Super Mario Bros. That we know and love. Now, Super Mario Land is one of the very few instances that I could think of back then where Nintendo was very cautious about releasing a brand new Mario game. Obviously, there's a lot different here compared to Super Mario Bros. On the NES or any of the other Mario games that came out on the NES at the time. This game doesn't take place in the Mushroom Kingdom. We don't have Princess Peach, we have Princess Daisy instead. There's other characters and other baddies besides Bowser and the Goombas and the Koopas. There's a lot different here, and it feels like a very cautious, careful approach to the franchise in case things really went awry. That being said, I can't think of any other instance in Nintendo's history where things were really kind of carefully approached with a cautious hand compared to some of the other big franchises that were released at the time, including The Legend of Zelda and some of the other big Nintendo franchises that eventually became iconic in their own right. Regardless, though, obviously we know of history and how things played out, and it worked out in Nintendo's favor, where Super Mario Land was a big hit with the Game Boy being one of the early launch titles, and it led to other releases and other sequels that starred other characters. Maybe one day we'll take a look at some of those games. Either way, besides bigging this game up, let's talk about the gameplay of Super Mario Land. Does it really still hold up, and is it even as good as some of the games that were released at the NES back then? Does Super Mario Land have some good gameplay for the Mario fans out there? Super Mario Land has gameplay almost identical to Super Mario Bros. On the NES. The obvious difference here are the stages and the enemies you encounter, but the mechanics of the game are exactly the same. Mario can hit blocks to earn coins and find power-ups, as well as jump on enemies to stomp them and avoid danger. Like in Super Mario Bros., if you get hit as Tiny Mario without grabbing a mushroom or a flower, you'll lose a life. Other things like going into pipes you find placed in levels can help you discover hidden rooms to gather more coins and gain extra lives. The bad guys here aren't part of Bowser's army, but goofy original enemies that only make an appearance in this game. There are a few baddies that resemble things like the Goomba, the Piranha Plant, or the Koopa Troopas, but they're not the same at all. At least that's according to the game's manual and other Super Mario history books. Apparently they're very different despite looking almost identical. Mario deals with his enemies in the same way as he always does, by stomping them, shooting them with a flower power-up, or finding a power star to defeat them. The flower in this game isn't the fire flower, but the Super Ball flower. This allows Mario to shoot a ball that defeats enemies and gathers coins for him. Many of the locations where coins are placed in weird spots can be gathered this way. And to my knowledge, this is the only game where the flower power you find can gather coins for you. Everything else like the mushroom and the power star do exactly what you expect them to do, give Mario a boost or make him invincible. This is good because there's at least some consistency between this and the rest of the series. I'm pretty sure fans of Mario would have been a little bit annoyed if too many things about him were changed up in here. But if you were craving to play a Mario game on the go back in 1989, you were definitely getting that here for the Game Boy. Despite all the differences in the context of Super Mario Land, I still at least feel like it worked to the game's advantage, still at least having a few things that were very transferable or very similar to the NES Mario games. The way that Mario moves, the way that he jumps, and the way that the controls still feel that they're very solid to use and are very responsive, that at least worked to the game's favor, especially for people back then that were still coming off from the NES. Outside of that, if you look at some of the visuals, being a Game Boy game where there isn't really any colors and stuff, I still think that this is still a pretty good, decent looking early Game Boy game. Mario still looks like Mario, there's still enemies that vaguely resemble some of the characters that you get from the previous Mario games, even though again, this is an entirely different land, this is an entirely different setting, a different story, but it still feels like a Mario game, and that's one of the strengths of the entire Mario franchise. Everything still feels very similar. Granted, there's different things happening there, here and there. And you see a lot of this that goes over into some of the other sequels that came later on and other Mario games that were on other portable consoles later in the years. There's still this very kind of like vague similarity between all the games with the way it controls, the way it moves, the physics, and a lot of that other stuff that you get in some of the earlier Mario titles for the NES, the Super NES, and the Game Boy. But still, this still feels like Mario. This is still Mario in essence, and a lot of people, including myself, really enjoy that about the series. But besides that type of stuff, does Super Mario Land still hold up today? Are people really going to want to go back and play this game? Granted, this is a very old Game Boy game. Again, one of the earlier launch titles. Is it still something that you could go back and still enjoy today? Because Super Mario Land was released on the Game Boy back in 1989, there's some other major differences about it from the other console Mario games. The biggest one being how short the game lasts, which actually works in its favor for being on a portable console like the Game Boy. I completed Super Mario Land straight through in under 30 minutes, and I'm pretty sure other people could finish the game in even less time. There are only 4 kingdoms in Sarasa Lands, each containing about 3 stages. This is much shorter than Super Mario Bros. On the NES, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is the shortest Mario game in the entire series. Other key differences are the vehicle stages, which only happen about twice in the entire game and are side-scrolling shooters underwater and in the air. These stages aren't really difficult, but they could get pretty challenging since the screen is constantly moving as enemies are flying at you, and you could get squished by the walls at the edge of the screen if you get too close to them. Both stages have you firing bullets at everything, which I'm guessing is the Super Ball ammo from the Super Ball flower. I doubt Nintendo is really going to let Mario fire an actual gun. Well, so much for that plan! Reaching the end of the game isn't too tough. Tatunga is the final boss in the last vehicle stage, and that isn't really bad. The ending of the game doesn't give you much story once you finish the final level. It shows Mario and Daisy flying away together as the credits roll, nothing more beyond that. So is this game worth completing just to see that? Yeah, I actually think it is. If you like good Game Boy games or are simply just a fan of Mario, then you'll find some charm in it. This was an early release for the Game Boy, so you can't really go in expecting too much beyond what you're getting here. It's Mario in a brand new adventure shortly after his previous ones on the NES, so I can't hold that against it whatsoever. Not the absolute best Mario game in the series, but definitely a solid one that was different for the time. Now, if I'm being totally honest with you guys, I don't think this is a Mario game that you absolutely need to play. I don't feel like you're going to be also missing out on a whole lot if you skip out on this game. But if you do decide to dive into it, at least, see what it has to offer, I think you're still going to have enough enjoyment with it. Again, this is a very different type of Mario game compared to everything else, and I also don't think this is the definitive Mario game for the Game Boy. I felt like the sequels that came afterwards were doing things a little bit much more differently, and they offered more to Game Boy fans, but I still feel like this is still a solid start for that series. The Game Boy can only do so much compared to its console counterparts, and I feel like as far as the tools that were available at the time for the Game Boy, again, the very first launch of the Game Boy, this is still pretty damn good, and it led to other great things that came in the years afterwards. So overall, what do I think about Super Mario Land on the Game Boy? I think it's a solid start to the Mario Land series on the Game Boy. I still think it's a fun game overall, given the actual tech that was released at the time at the start of the Game Boy's life cycle compared to what we got later on. I still feel like this is a very solid start. It's not a very long game, it doesn't have as many stages or worlds as other Mario games in the franchise, but for the ones that are at least offered here, it's still fun to play, at least, for a short period of time on the go. I still think that overall, the other sequels like Super Mario Land 2 and Super Mario Land 3 had much more better things to offer, but for a first start, or at least a first step for the Mario series on a portable console, this was still pretty darn cool. And there you have it, everybody. Those are my thoughts on Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. It's an interesting game. If you're a Mario fan, I feel like you could still get something out of playing it even now. Again, this game has been around for a long time, ever since the launch of the Game Boy, so it's kind of neat to kind of go back and see how things kind of evolved since back then. Again, that was a little bit more kind of closer to the start of the Mario franchise, but as we know, history turned out really good for it. We got a couple other games afterwards, as well as other cool, interesting things for some Mario games that were on portable devices. But those are just my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think about Super Mario Land in the comment section down below. Do you enjoy the game? Do you like the sequels more? Do you like any of the characters that we got introduced to in this game? Put it all in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos just like this one and all the other great content that I have here on the channel for you guys. There's a lot of great stuff that I know you're gonna love. Also, please don't forget, I have an open Discord channel that you guys could join up with right now. There's links in the description box below. There's a great community of people there that we have talking about games, anime, movies, and a whole bunch of other stuff that you guys definitely need to join up on. It's a lot of fun being part of the Discord channel, so check out the links down below. And of course, I have to give a big shout out to Jasmine Russell, who is supporting me at the Beast tier level below on my Patreon page. You're getting shoutouts for the entire month on every single video. If you guys want that same type of love, make sure you guys check out the links in the description box down below. It goes directly to my Patreon page. There is a bunch of tier levels, a whole bunch of great rewards. I know you guys will definitely love. For everybody that shows love and supports me on there, you guys are getting a ton of great exclusive content. Anyway, I will talk to you guys again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody. Thanks very much for watching this video review, everyone. I really appreciate all the support as always. Make sure you guys check out the videos I put here on the side, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, check out some of the links I have down below. Talk to you guys again real soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.